5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We are live. There it is. Welcome to Weather Center Live, folks. Welcome back to the Weather Center. It is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. It still feels weird to say that. Let's go ahead and talk the weather pattern. I wanted to say talk tropics for a second, but we ain't there yet. Let's not rush it. We're going to be talking about the multitude of storm systems that are likely to impact the southern tier United States all the way up the eastern seaboard, possibly into the Midwest, the Great Lakes, into eastern Canada, Ontario, and Quebec alike, up towards James Bay, as a matter of fact. We'll see who we get to join us tonight. YouTube is once again all over a place. Yesterday's video did phenomenally. We got a lot of subscribers, and then I guess I jinxed myself. I'd mentioned, let's go for 6K today, and YouTube was like, you thought. But anyways, we're still going to talk the weather, see what's going on out there. We have a lot of decent information to cover tonight. We're still a little ways away from the main event. We're mainly going to be scrutinizing a little bit more so what's going to happen this weekend because, in my opinion, I think we have a bit more of a shot at seeing a lot greater of a snowfall total amount for this preliminary storm than we do even the second one. The second one, it seems like our models are trying to back off on the level of snow accumulation we could possibly get. It's going to take a little bit more time to dial all that information in, but we at least have a good first glance to work with tonight. We'll go ahead and start saying hello to everybody. Mick and Marley front and center. Howdy, howdy. Good to see you. We are going to get sciencey. That's for certain. Super Charas, what is up? How close are we? Welcome in. Malachi, good to see you. Thanks for jumping in tonight. Mr. Florida, Brian, welcome. Ethan's Life, what is up? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Nomad Cat 4, welcome back. Good evening. Good to see you. Devil Charger, God, I love being able to storm chase in the wintertime. Big thanks to El Nino. Devil Charger, I absolutely agree. That's another thing we're going to talk about tonight. I'm definitely thinking of taking some time off from work. It's just going to be a matter of nailing down exactly where we are going to do some chasing. This one definitely seems a bit more high-vis than the last threat we covered and the last time we went chasing in western Florida, so we're also going to kind of dive into that just a little bit. We're still a little far out, so again, we're not going to get too heavily into the weeds, but we're going to start off with SPC, Storm Prediction Center. This is what we've got so far. We have the 15% highlighted for the Gulf coastline, and I'm in pretty decent agreement with this because of the fact that we're going to have very substantial onshore flow. I should probably use a better marker. Very, very substantial onshore flow. We'll take a look at that here in a moment, but there's going to be quite a warm conveyor surging out of the Caribbean, the Western Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, what warm water we have left down there, helping to modify and enhance the environment just a little bit. We are still going to be under a modified continental polar air mass to the north up here, so I do think that our convergent area of most unstable, we'll call it Cape. There is a parameter, most unstable Cape. We'll say our most unstable parameters are probably going to be confined to this general area. I do think this should spread a little further to the east into northern Florida, possibly into the very southern periphery of the Carolinas, parts of Georgia as well. I hope that they highlight it. In my opinion, this is kind of what it would look like for me, is what I'm thinking. Right in through there is going to be our greatest chance for severe weather. Just to the north of that, we might see a little bit of an extension as it continues to transition up the coastline. And then as of right now, anyways, at least looking specifically at the GFS and the European model, it does look like our snow swath for the second event, not the first one. The second one is going to probably be somewhere right in through here with a pretty good total amount of accumulation happening over the Appalachians. And that's a bone to pick, or that's a bone that I have to pick with a lot of the weather community because, boy, I don't know what changed in the algorithm of YouTube, but ever since we rolled past New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, I've been having so many new recommendations, so many new suggestions, and at first I thought, the YouTube weather sphere ain't too saturated, not like the fitness or the car community. Was I wrong? Because I'm suddenly seeing sources from all over the place, all sorts of different new weather pages, all sorts of new social media, all sorts of new weather channels, and yeah, there's a lot of folks going for multiple feet of snow. And again, I'm going to fall back on the JNSI, just not seeing it. Do I see over a foot of snow for some regions? 100%. Yep, I do. I'm going to give it that thumbs up Weather Center seal of approval. And like I mentioned, we'll take a look at that here momentarily. It does seem like that first low pressure system that's going to do something like this kind of go up in a bona fide nor'easter fashion, could drop some really good snowfall right in through this quadrant of the United States. Very uppermost Midwest, or I should say easternmost Midwest, uppermost Mid-Atlantic, and then into the Northeast as well, with a slight threat of some freezing precip right in through here because of all that cold air dammed up against the Appalachians on the lee side of the mountains there. So that's what I'm thinking. I think the first storm, truthfully, based off of all the digging that I've done, and we really won't know for certain exactly what's going to shake out until we are probably 48 to 72 hours away from the big event, from ground zero, as we like to say. But right now, as we stand, I do believe that the first storm is going to pack more of a snow punch. The second one is going to be more of a severe threat, mainly just because that first system that's going to come through is going to leave us with a very good high pressure over the East Coast that's going to allow for such aggressive return flow over the South. And then once we get that big push of thickness, Brian, you commented on my video earlier today, with the density changes and the mass difference of the air rushing out of the Rockies like so, allowing for quite the surge of return flow out of the south. This is where I think we are on a collision course for seeing some pretty good enhanced thunderstorm activity. Not going to say full bona fide severe all the way through the south and southeast, but we'll definitely see the threat for some rotating storms along the coastline where the waters are still warm. We have that good onshore flow, missing the terrain, not having a whole lot to do with the frictional forces of it moving inland. So yeah, I'm thinking that if anything, next week is going to be a good, I'm not going to say very favorable or opportune, but I'm going to say it's a decent shot at some waterspout chasing, waterspout hunting. Yep, that's literally what I was just saying, PM. I agree. I'm the luckiest person in the world. I almost broke my neck. Malachi, how did you do that? Please, I mean, if you don't want to share specifics in the chat, but shoot, you definitely are lucky if that's the case. God bless. Should this help their drought? 175%, yes, it's going to definitely help. In fact, this first system that's getting ready to come through within the next 24 or 36 hours is really going to help with, really going to help with the drought. Going to get a couple inches of rain. It looks like max expected totals could be anywhere between 2 to 4 inches. Mainly an inch to an inch and a half is going to be the general outlook on average for most of the south and southeast who needs it. Second system is going to be a little more sporty. We're looking at anywhere between 3-4 inches on average, maybe some occasional 5-inch totals. And I still think we might have a very small chance at trying to reach for an isolated severe thunderstorm with this next system that's going to come through. We'll talk about that. We'll go ahead and move on, as a matter of fact. Let's get into that right now. Judy, welcome in. I saw you join in. Amanda, welcome in. Who else do we have? April. So the SPC is going by the GFS model, judging by that map. They're kind of going by both. The Euro is still calling for some pretty significant thunderstorm activity. I really haven't taken a glance at the Canadian or the Icon. I know the Canadian was doing fairly decently the last few days. Saturday, they are calling for 5 to 8 inches of snow and ice in Waynesboro, Virginia, but the weather app built into the iPhone says 9.4 inches. See, now those sound like, Kevin, those sound like very realistic numbers based off of what I'm seeing. Especially for our first system, we're going to have a much tighter vortex with it. So we're going to have a lot more of that wraparound cold air, wraparound moisture from the warm sector to mix into where our freezing line is. And that's where I do think we could see anywhere between 6 inches all the way upwards of a foot of snow along the northeast United States. So I do agree with those, 5 to 8 inches. What I don't agree with are all the folks out there, and it's a shame that my video is getting smothered today of all days because I'm trying to highlight this. I'm noticing so many sources trying to say that we're going to get 2 to 3, 4 feet of snow, historical amounts, and it's like, where are you guys getting this from? Like, first of all, anybody who can interpolate model data would notice that the higher accumulation obviously is going to be over the higher terrain. It's going to be over the mountains. So we have Appalachian mountains that run all through this general area. And if you look on the models, that's where our greatest accumulation is likely to occur. It's not really occurring too heavily over the lower terrain areas on the windward or the leeward side of the mountains. In fact, the freezing rain threat is going to be confined to very localized instances on the lee of the mountains because of our CAD, our cold air damming setup that's still going to be in place after the first system. And, out in this general quadrant, the Midwest, the lower Great Lakes, I'm seeing anywhere between 3 to 6 inches of snow. That's what I'm seeing. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. It's not like it's not going to do anything. Obviously, we don't want to ignore 3, 6, 9 inches of snow. That's definitely going to be a snowed in kind of event. Schools are going to be out. Power outages are likely. You don't want to be traveling on the roads. There's going to be increased chances of accidents. Could possibly lead to fatalities if you find yourself in a bad situation, black ice. If you do have the occasional freezing rain event that's going to happen in your area, or any kind of sleet, grapple for that matter, it could cause some dangerous situations, but kind of getting tired of all the weird information that I see flying around everywhere. I even shared with a few friends on the inside. Either I suck at snow forecasting or I'm missing the mark big time because I'm not seeing any of this 2 to 4, 5 feet of snow. Are we going to see a lot of snow? Definitely. But at the same time, what I think a lot of folks are doing is they're taking the overall stretch of snowfall between all these storms and making that their forecast. And no. You're pulling a fast one. You're inflating your numbers, and that's not how it works. It's a forecast per storm. You could make a forecast for total accumulation over a set period of time, but don't advertise to everybody that, oh, this is how much we're going to see in this super storm event. Look out. Like, no, come on. Now that you're, once again, shoosh, if we're starting I was going to say, I almost said it. If we're starting the 2024 calendar year like this, I can only imagine when hurricane season rolls in. Oh my God, Cat 5 in June. No, dang it. Which, by the way, speaking of hurricane season, we're going to go off topic just very briefly. I've noticed CanSib's data has not populated yet. We can take a look real briefly before the end of the stream tonight, but I've been looking and double-checking because I know I told you guys we'd be discussing that later today, if not, sometime this week, and I haven't seen it go in just yet. Super Charas, I agree, and it's winning. It's unfortunate. Clickbait out there is winning right now. There's a lot of people out there, and their videos are being suggested because massive clickbait, and it's such a bummer. I didn't think I would say, I don't know why I have so much faith, but I thought that maybe, it's winter time. You can only hype winter so much, but dang, everyone's coming out of the woodwork now that we have this big monstrosity on the horizon. Everyone's coming out of the woodwork. But here we go. We're looking at our European control member for 12 Zulu just to get a better feel on what the overall consensus is that the models are thinking. Still expecting a bomb cyclone up there over the eastern Great Lakes headed into the northeast. This shade of blue here is the Euro thinking that we could be sub 980 in the center of this system as it continues to deepen down. And take a look at this over the central northern plains, Nebraska area. Looks like a secondary shot of cold air coming in back behind it. Here's our first system. Front draped down to the south like that. Warm sector somewhere up and through there. And then we have another system supported by this high pressure over, I believe that's Alberta. No, that's Manitoba, I believe, if not mistaken. It's British Columbia, Alberta. I think this is Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Quebec. So somewhere over central Canada, we have another high pressure coming down that's going to give us another shot at possible snowfall for the northern Rockies. Could try to skirt close to the Midwest, northern plains, drop a little bit of extra snow. And this is what I'm talking about. We're going to have one system, lots of snow, two systems, lots of snow, and some extra increased funneling of cold air and moisture to help add to the snow totals. But folks are almost trying to make it sound like this one storm that's going to do this is what's going to be multiple feet of snow. No, guys, chill. Each storm is individually going to wrap up with about maybe half an inch or half a foot to a foot of snow, and it's the total accumulation as we go over the next few weeks that's going to look like that. It just so happens to be everything's lining up at once, and that's what I'd rather hear people communicating, is we're going to have multiple perturbations in the pattern, and that's why we're eventually going to see the snow piling up, because we're just going to have low after low after low. It's not a matter of we have a massive system coming through and it's going to destroy everything a la Day After Tomorrow called Jake Gyllenhaal. It's not going to be like that. So Euro is thinking general consensus. Our first one I notice is a little weaker. This one here was initially looking a bit stronger. I'm pretty sure if we go back to 0Z, as a matter of fact, yeah, see that? Euro was thinking this could be a possible sub 1,000 millibar as it moves into the Carolinas, mid-Atlantic. And then you come up to 12Z and you can see that the model is starting to trend down. across the board. If we go back to 0Z and take a look at our main system, you look at that and you can see we were still expecting a sub 980 before it hits the Great Lakes in the Midwest. You come up to 12Z, and now it's showing that it'll go sub 980 after it almost crosses over, what is that? Either Lake Erie or one of the Great Lakes into the Canadian province of Quebec. So still lots and lots of wiggle room, kind of like PM had said. We're going to have lots of adjusting, and I think the biggest adjustments are going to be in our snow totals. I think the biggest adjustments we're going to see, like they have been even with the hurricane season back in 2023. So weird to say that. I know it's only January 2nd, but it's true. We're going to see changes in intensity, and we're going to see the changes in the total precip, whether it be rain and snow alike, or even freezing rain. I've noticed they've been very back and forth with that. One thing is for certain, and I'll actually go to the 1,500 thickness first. This is mean sea level pressure, precip, and thickness. And if you look over the south, the first system is already going to make way and help to pull in a lot of cold air from up north. Here's our 540 line, the snow line right there. And I've been seeing a couple people hinting that we could get some snowfall down in the southeast. There's a shot. There's definitely a shot, but, you know, that 540 line, at least according to the Euro, is going to stay much further to the north. So if anything, we're going to see snowfall right up in this quadrant of the storm. This band here could possibly be where our snow is falling. This is just going to be all showers and thunderstorms down here. But look at this good thickness packing. Very good thickness packing, not a good pressure gradient with it, so we're still going to see some cold air funneling, just not as substantial of a punch. We'll definitely need to watch that closely, because if this does deepen down a little bit more, it's going to prime the environment to be a little less unstable than what we're initially thinking right now. But then as that system works its way up, this is why I'm thinking we could definitely see a little bit more snowfall for the Northeast with this first system, because check out right in through here. Here's, once again, let me go ahead and draw it for you guys. Here's our 540 line. There's your rain-snow line scraping right over top the Manhattan Island, parts of Pennsylvania, most of Pennsylvania, getting it. Looks like Maryland and Delaware is going to possibly be split in half. And then here's your snowfield right here. That's where the snowfall is going to be tracking through for the most part. And that's where your heaviest snowfall is going to hit, barreling into the northeast, very textbook nor'easter. And that's why I think this one is going to have a bit more of a snowfall impact than the next one. And we'll take a look at that here now. No, they don't, but I guess they win on YouTube, I guess. I already see climate conspiracy nonsense on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Yes, I agree with that. What I meant to say is I don't know why, but I'm also noticing that there's more of those HARP individuals popping off everywhere, whether it be on TikTok or YouTube. I'm starting to see them spread out like a new internal weather pandemic. I don't know why. HARP is popping up everywhere, HAARP. Not AARP like the health insurance, add an H to that, and that's like the weather modification. I think it's very weird. Trees greater 619, yes, we're definitely going to see stuff in Central Florida. In fact, once again, I'm thinking this first system could possibly bring a little bit more to the Central Florida area than the second one. So that's why I think the second system, or I should say the third, is where we're going to be storm chasing either somewhere in southern Georgia or right up along the coastline of the Panhandle. I agree with you guys who made the comments earlier today that there is a lot of wooded and foresty areas in interior Panhandle, Florida, headed towards, the Mississippi area. I'm not going to try to stay on the interstate around there. I definitely think I'm going to try to just hightail it around the more back road kind of ish, right along the coast. I think my first target area that I wrote down earlier is going to be Apalachicola. Apalachicola Bay, maybe push it back up towards where the Tyndall Air Force Base, Panama City area is and try to catch a waterspout or two is what I'm thinking. Preliminarily, we'll see. We will definitely see. But here you go. Here's the first system that rolls through. And you can see that our Euro is definitely thinking we could see some sporty convective activity in Florida. And, I think that there's still a marginal risk that we'll see some serious stuff. Nothing major, nothing crazy, nothing catastrophic, but, given how robust of a dynamic setup we have here and just the change in our temperature gradient, I know we're still looking at thickness, but it does a great job of showing where your colder and warmer values are. And the fact that we are going to have a decent low-level jet with this. The low-level jet is going to be present with that first system. Take a look at that. Not as amplified. It's very similar to what we saw with the one system that I chased out in western Florida. Very similar setup. We have our funneling of warmer modified air coming right out of the Caribbean, the southern Gulf of Mexico, and then you can see how we're blending in dry air with this system from the west. and off of the plains. So that's why I like to try to communicate it to you from a large scale, is if you look at where the low is circulating right here and you imagine it as like a cyclonic vacuum in the atmosphere, we're taking this source region and pulling all of its atmospheric or environmental air in along its backside. And then if you look at this anticyclone, this high pressure kind of parked right over top Bermuda, I know this map cuts off, but this kind of vacuum or this little pump, like in a pool to help circulate the chlorine through the water, is helping to pull in all of our conditions out of the Atlantic. And as you get into the southern base of this anticyclone, you're now tapping into equatorial tropical air and driving it up to the north. And when you see that acceleration in the winds, that is your jet, your low-level jet, your conveyor belt, as they like to call it, or just your we'll call it like a little wind tunnel of where all that temperature advection is narrowing down and channeling up and fast. And that's why we have that acceleration in the winds. That's showing you how we have one feature here, one feature here, and it's kind of getting bottlenecked in between, and that's what helps to intensify the probability of seeing thunderstorms, let alone severe weather activity. So the first one comes through, and then here comes the second one. Well, bam, big whack across the side of the head over the eastern half of the United States. We could possibly have an upper warm front, an 850 millibar warm front, as far north as James Bay, central Quebec, and into Ontario. That's how far of a surge to the north. I bet you if we were to look at an 850 millibar temperature advection chart, we'd see warm air advection occurring all the way up there. And that's the same air that's going to start down here and move all the way up. No worry, Ethan. Have fun. Or I should have fun. We'll talk to you soon. JJ, yep, I'm glad other people are picking up what I'm putting down. We could see some severe storms and high winds. I do think high winds is going to be a very big issue, and no one's really talking about that. Valerie, I love Appalachia. Oh, very good. I haven't been up there in a long time, so we'll see what it's like. Alligator Point will be a tough spot to chase. Bad roads and poor cell signal. Yeah, I remember I read your comment earlier, and I'm definitely going to have to look closely at just overall the mapping of the area, the GPS of the area. So we'll go, now that we're talking surface winds, we'll transition real fast. I pointed this out in my video earlier today, and I haven't seen anybody mention this. Like, not a single weather source that I've watched, I'm not even joking, not a single one has mentioned what kind of non-convective winds that we're having, or non-convective winds that we could be having, I should say. And whenever you guys hear me say that on my channel or in a video or whatever the case may be, and you hear me say convective versus non-convective, if I were to say a convective event, that means it's totally based on lift, on heating, and on instability or buoyancy. And of course, obviously, we may have some upper-level dynamics like shortwave troughs, cold air, other things helping to create mechanical lift or, not convective lift. You know how we have convection ovens and you have convection in your microwaves, things like that, creating lift and heat. That's what I mean by convection. When I say non-convective, I mean it's not associated with thunderstorms. So if you hear convective winds, like when you have your severe thunderstorm warnings out, that means within your thunderstorms, they will be the ones producing those winds, nothing else. Non-convective, and what we're going to look at right now, is totally unrelated to thunderstorms or anything like that. This is going to come from the entire large-scale parameter altogether. So if you look, no one has talked about this, and it has me a little concerned, especially for the second system. Here we go. There's the first one. The first one could be definitely a sporty event. These are 700 millibar winds, and across most of the southeast, we're at 50 knots or stronger. The second one, and this is the Euro, the second one has some very good winds associated with it right in through there. And you can see that we have a nice channel of upwards of 75 all the way up to 90 knots. A little 90-knot corridor moving right towards the Big Bend of Florida. And the reason I say this could pack a really good non-convective punch is because if we have 87, we'll round it out. We'll kind of average it out. If we have 75 knots of 700 to 850 millibar winds, 5,000 to 8,000 feet above ground level or above the surface, And you have things like gravity, you have things like downward forcing, if you have rain, if you have surface features like the cold air that's coming through that creates sinking air, what happens is you have a phenomena called momentum transfer. We used to use that a lot when I was in Air Force weather, and essentially momentum transfer is you have all this moving air. You know, when you hear, I got to build momentum when I'm running or when I'm working out to just keep going, same concept. You build that momentum in the upper levels, and the reason it's called transfer is you have some sort of a mechanism pushing that same momentum down towards ground. And typically, on average, it's a safe bet that regardless of what's causing the forcing towards the ground, you're going to realize half, if not maybe 70% of those wins. And so if you take 75% and you multiply it by, we'll say 70%, you're still going to get somewhere between 45 to 50 knots down where you can feel it on the surface to cause damage. And looking at some of these wins, I think the GFS was even higher than this. Let's see what the GFS was saying, or let's see what it says now at 18 Zulu. Take it through time. Yeah, look at that. If this unfolds, that's going to be a very, very severe non-convective wind threat on Tuesday is what it's looking like. These all are approaching 100 knots of wind for parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. And if you take that and let's just go, we'll go and round all the way up to 100 knots. We'll just say 100 knots. So you take 65, 70% of that, 65, 70 knot winds down at the surface. Obviously, that's not a foolproof or a fail-safe 100% accurate way to forecast your winds. There's going to be a ton of different variables, but this is just a simple rule of thumb that if you see this happening above ground level, you can infer that some of that is going to make it to the surface. And in this case, even if you only get 50% of this, you're going to still get 40, 50 knot winds down at ground level, and that's going to cause some damage. Yesterday, my gust for the 10th was 58. Yep, I believe that. Definitely, I agree with tornado outbreak or a derecho. I think, and some good straight line winds could also be an issue. I definitely believe. Hello, David. How are you? Hey, saying Nick, I'm assuming. Welcome in. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Good to see you, buddy. High wind warning for Ohio next week. That makes sense. That's because of pressure gradient. Oh, yeah, the pressure gradient at the surface is going to help to expedite these winds for sure. For sure. Those are two different unrelated mechanisms, though. Pressure, and that's kind of what I was briefing earlier in today's video. That dense, cold air, Brian was fixated on that. It was funny. The density of your air is going to also help to influence your surface wind speeds. You don't always need a good pressure gradient to create strong surface winds. Now, 9 times out of 10, they're synonymous with one another. If you have a strong pressure gradient and wind and cold air coming through, you're going to need the pressure gradient or the wind flow to circulate that air through. But if you have a less dense air mass being replaced with a more dense air mass, obviously it's going to come through like an iron fist and help to accelerate the momentum. You see how it comes full circle? So this is going to be a big situation, definitely. And if the GFS verifies, we could possibly have some really good onshore flow before friction kind of deviates the surface wind flow further inland for the Gulf Coast. Like we're talking, once again, tropical storm kind of winds, just like what we saw in Tampa Bay, only definitely a bit more higher and sustained winds. I haven't really taken a look too much at our wind models just because, once again, we're still way a ways away. And I don't want to take that with a full level of confidence, but we'll take a quick glance at it now. And PM, no, to answer your question, I haven't seen any, I've been checking my DMs on X Twitter a lot, and I haven't gotten anything yet, because I know you've been meaning to reach out to me, unless I'm just not seeing it. Is it in, yeah, no, I don't have anything in message requests either. So maybe try to send it again, and hopefully it'll come through. When is this going to happen? So it looks like the main system that everyone's talking about is going to start brewing up as we start to deal with this first system this weekend. And then into especially Tuesday and then Wednesday for the north and northeast, that's when all the snow, the blizzards, the freezing precip could definitely take place. It's honestly starting to look like we down here could start seeing severe weather as early as Monday into Tuesday. And I'm really thinking Monday is going to be my day to go out and chase and try to catch some stuff towards the very back end of the day into the early morning. Anything that you can tell us about next hurricane season? We'll get into that here in a moment. My manager at Carrabba's helped feed Hurricane Ida victims in New Orleans back in 2020. Hell yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I love it when I hear how communities pull together, especially during very, very significant weather activity like this. I had to tune in. It's very good to see you doing well. Likewise, buddy. I definitely hope you're doing outstanding wherever you are these days. And we got to reconnect at some point very, very soon. All right, let me check. PM. Let's see. There we go. Now I see it. Oh, and now it populated the older message. I got it. I don't know why it didn't show me the first one at 6:55. It definitely populated the new message request just now. That's very weird. I don't like how message requests come through, because sometimes on Instagram especially, I'll get these most random, bizarre, hey, come check out my private blah, 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 and it's like, just delete. How do you even message me? You don't follow me. No one follows me on that, whatever. But I got it now. The clouds and thunderstorms are going to be booking with the third storm system. Yeah, they are. Flying. Do you think schools could potentially close in southeast Michigan because of the snowstorm? Yep, Joey, I definitely do see that. I would definitely see school closures, especially from the Great Lakes and east. We'll definitely see schools shut down. The first system is going to close schools, I would believe, or I would imagine. And then the second one is just going to kind of reinforce that. But let's take a look real quick at what our winds are looking like. So yeah, see, even with that second system this weekend, we can get kind of good winds. There's a 47 knot gust right there at Panama City Tyndall Air Force Base near Apalachicola, as a matter of fact, with that first system. Then the second one, yeah, there we go. So the Euro's doing a decent job of showing our possible strong winds, especially off the coastline. I think this might be a little under forecasted. Let me see if the GFS can show up. Let's go to the GFS and see what GFS is thinking. Because then again, I know GFS has a stronger core of winds aloft. Yeah, see, this makes a little more sense, looking at 50-knot winds across much of Florida, parts of Alabama, I should say, Georgia, South Carolina. And again, guys, like I said, the momentum transfer information, there's lots and lots and lots of pieces of the puzzle. You can't only just go off of the percentage and how much you realize, etc. You got to look at skew T's. You got to assess what's going to help mix those winds down. You got to take a look at the instability of your area, if you're capped, if you're uncapped. Believe it or not, you want to look at like lapse rates, instability, buoyancy in the general area if you want to forecast winds. It's not only for thunderstorms and rain and all that. Believe it or not, buoyancy and rising air and all that play a role on momentum transfer. And for example, here, one thing that we do have working with us, at least for the most part, is we're going to be in the warm sector and where the unstable air is. So a lot of it's going to be rising. We're not going to see a lot of that stuff mixed down. It's going to be after the front goes through, if it does, when we start to see a lot of that mixing of the winds and it becomes more non-convective than convective. Let's see, what else are we looking at? Here's the 18Z GFS. I haven't really looked at this just yet. It looks like 18Z GFS has kind of backed off on that first system, ironically. It never usually does that. Usually it gets stronger. And then there's our second system. As you can see, there's the severe threat right there. This is Tuesday at 03Z, so at 0Z, 21Z is when the stuff is going to start banding up. And you could actually see, there's your warm front right there. There's the warm front for this system. Textbook, very textbook warm front. And then here's all your wraparound snow. Cold front is starting to show itself right in through here. This system's going to occlude very fast. And occlusion basically means when you see the purple front, the occlusion means that the cold air has caught up to the warm air and you're starting to pinch that off. And that's when you see the occlusion. So that's why I think this system is going to occlude quickly. It's going to be a cold occlusion, at least initially. Cold occlusion right there, yep. And as a matter of fact, this model does an outstanding job. Right here, boom, already occluded. Right here, you can see we have a triple point low, triple point cyclogenesis happening right there. There's our cold front already ridging way down to the south. Look at this surface ridging right here. That's a lot of good cold air advection punching through on the southern base of this system. Your warm sector is still somewhere in through here. It's having a hard time getting through all this modified polar air. It's another thing, too. That's another reason why I'm fully on board with what SPC is thinking, because we're going to have quite the leftover continental and maritime polar air. Here's a CP air mass here, and here's a modified CP transitioning to MP air mass here. So this warm air is not going to be able to intrude very far. That upper front is going to surge up and go over it, but down at the surface, we're not going to see a whole lot of advection. Not a whole lot of advection. And you take it through time, and then you can finally see, look at all that cold air damming right over the Carolinas into Virginia. That's a good shot at freezing rain. right through here is where you can see a lot of good freezing rain activity happen. And it looks like we get another, at least according to the 18Z, another triple point low trying to form up. Here's our occlusion. Warm front, cold front still lagging back behind. So, you know, this is going to be a tough forecast. This is going to be a tough forecast. We're really going to have to, let's change gears a little bit. We're going to going to go to Tropical Tidbits because I like their model version of it a little bit better. We're going to go to what we usually use during the hurricane season. We're going to use 700 to 300 millibar relative humidity just to see what our dry air is doing, because that's going to play a role as well. So here we go. There's our system. Yeah, so right there's 0Z. There's 0Z. So right here, just looking at this model by itself, it looks like severe weather for right in through here. Possibly right in through here as well. So yeah, it kind of looks like just using this 700 to 300 millibar chart alone and looking at our winds, the isobars or the contours in this case, looks like we could see a channel of severe weather right in through here once you mix in the other parameters that we were just looking at. All this is going to be your good shot at possible snowfall, definitely. The first system or the second one that goes through over the weekend definitely looks very similar to that. There you go. Really solid punch of dry air right there. Right in through here. This is the backside of it, though. So maybe that's why they're not thinking severe with this system. So a lot of the dry air entrainment is going to be on the backside and in the cold sector of this system. So, you know, isolated thunderstorms, maybe some occasional thunder and lightning. We'll see. So, yeah, let's go ahead and before we wrap up, let's see if nothing has come in for Climo data yet. Nothing has come in for climate. That's very weird. We do have 18 Zulu. We'll look at this here in a second. But, yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see a coastal situation for sure. It's going to be a coastal setup. Let's see what the 18Z GFS is thinking in terms of supercell parameters, because I know they have that on here, for example. ML Cape, we'll look at ML Cape first, see what they're thinking. So there's our first one. This is over the weekend, and you can see that we have some hatched lines in there, so they're thinking there's going to be a cap, or I should say the model's thinking there's going to be a cap. Second one, yep. Oh, actually, the second one is thinking there's going to be a pretty solid capping mechanism as well. Where you see those dashed or those hatched lines, that means that we are capped, we are untapped. But there you go. Even at 18Z, you can see that model is thinking we could have anywhere between 2,000 to 1,400 joules per kilogram, and I'll zoom us in so you guys can see. That's why I'm thinking Apalachicola, blam, right there. That's why I'm thinking Apalachicola, somewhere around Tyndall, Panama City is where I might just go ahead and set up. Because there's our little bit of untapped cape potential. Let's see what the surface-based cape looks like. Surface-based is probably not going to be all that impressive if there is a capping mechanism stopping it from spreading in. Yeah, see, lots of cap, lots of cap. We're barely going to break through the cap is what the models are thinking. So very tricky, very tricky. We could have another conditionally unstable setup. Could be another conditionally unstable setup. We'll have to look at some skew-T soundings once we get up close and personal with this. Probably by the weekend, we can look at our skew-Ts and make a bit of a judgment call. What does the EHI look like? Energy Helicity Index. Yeah, see, once again, that's why I'm thinking the first one actually looks more impressive than the second one. Look at that. Oh, no, this is it. Never mind. Whoops. I'm going way too far in time. There it is. So, yeah, there you go, guys. 18Z, we're still seeing really good agreement for coastline, Pensacola over towards Apalachicola Bay. That's where it looks like for Florida anyways could be the highest chance of a water spout and some funnel cloud activity. And EHI is still in line with that. Very good EHI values, actually, going way up into the 6 and 7 threshold right there. You can see there's 5, 6, some very localized instances of approaching 7. Let's see, supercell composite. Let's see what the supercell composite is thinking. There's Monday into, yeah, look at that. Ooh, yeah, there we go. So we found our first target, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. So that's where we're going. That's where we're going. So we'll see what happens. Where did you see January 16th on the EHI? I went too far down the road. I pulled this up. This is what we're looking at right here. There we go. That's what I'm looking at. I backpedaled. I went too far. I forgot that this loop goes way out. I went way too far out. We're not using the euro anymore. So there you have it. This is actually looking more like a Tuesday event on the GFS now. Tuesday event right there. What does the Supercell Composite show? Yeah, so Supercell Composite goes up. What does simulated reflectivity show? There's Monday. Shucks. So it might... Oh, this is going to be tough. We're definitely going to have to wait and see. But this does seem like it's going to be my first area that I want to deploy at. It's about a 6.5 hour drive from where I am in Polk County. So we'll see. Right up in through here is going to be, I think, Chase Zone 1 is what I'm thinking. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens, especially once we get into the weekend. Once we're battling that first system, we can look at our high-res model data. Oh, yeah, we definitely do, Eric. I agree. Lots more rain. We are still under very, very substantial drought conditions. And we'll definitely have to see what this year brings for us. And hopefully we can get out of that drought sooner than later before El Nino collapses. And then we're relying on sea breeze storms if they pop off this year and potential tropical systems. Yeah, I've noticed that. GFS is doing some very funky things over the south. We'll go back to tropical tidbits real quick. It'll be an easy way to pull this up. And we'll look at 18Z GFS. And yeah, there's our second one for the weekend. There's the third one. Boom, right there. And then it looks like GFS is thinking we're going to get something. Oh, look at that. GFS is actually thinking we're going to get a repeat. 18Z GFS is thinking there's going to be a repeat and then a one right after that. Look at this. Now we're going to have to see if this trends. If that trends, there's going to be a lot of hubbub and a lot of hype in the weather sphere for sure. There's going to be a lot of stuff flying everywhere on the social media, on the YouTubes, on the Facebooks. Because here's our first storm that's kind of more or less I use kind of a lot, but it's grounded in confidence for the most part. But then check this out. Here comes the second one, a real low rider. Cold pocket breaks off and heads through Baja California. My mic stand's in the way. Goes through Baja California, blows up once again, and this is a repeat. Boom, blowing up. And then right behind that one, hot on its heels from the polar front jet, or maybe even the Arctic jet. These are very low thicknesses up here. Pulling out of the Great Plains, and another one. So we'll have to see. Definitely not thinking this is what's going to actually take place, but very interesting to see. The models could be onto something in terms of just how active of a winter time we're going to get. And again, I'm telling you guys, I don't know. I know that this is the GFS, and we're looking long range. We're getting into La La Land, like I'll always say. La La Land right here. It looks like there's a converging pair of storms. There's one moving through the Pacific Northwest right here, and then this cutoff low is getting pulled in by that trough that's coming down and getting picked up. This is going to be the tricky one down here. Cutoff systems are not handled well by models. So this one down here would be technically the tricky one. It's definitely a cold pocket. I can see a isotherm or a thickness line right in the center, totally barotropic. And then this baroclinic system, unstable wave, is coming down to kind of catch it and chuck it off up to the northeast. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. I agree, it's definitely weird. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic. It's definitely a doable scenario. It's just a matter of if we're going to have the jet activity to support this. Because one thing I'm already noticing is the models love to go full force, and then as we get closer and people start to get confident in them, they reel it back in. It's like they're dangling the carrot in front of the horse. Kind of, sort of, Nick, I agree. But we'll see, guys. Honestly, the key takeaway for me is I'm really starting to wonder, because, forgive me, but I really didn't track winter storms and how aggressive of a winter pattern we had at the start of 2023. I was still off the social media. I didn't even have my Weather Center Instagram page, and that was the thing I made first before YouTube. So I really wasn't paying much attention to the weather at all. So I don't know what to kind of base it off of. I'm not going to try to lie to you and say, this is worse, this is way busier, because I really don't know. But just judging by the fact that the pattern is going to get this aggravated and pissed off for all intents and purposes really makes me wonder what the rest of the year is going to look like. And with that being said, it is 8:45. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's go over to some canned sips and some CFS data and take a look at the tropics just to round out the live stream. Forgive me for those of you watching for United States weather. That pretty much wraps it up, folks. I mean, we'll start to further interrogate what's coming this weekend for the South and Southeast, and then eventually that first snowstorm as we get into tomorrow, Thursday, and especially Friday when things get underway. We're still quite a ways away, so I don't want to obsess over it too heavily. So yeah, we'll go over that very soon. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. We're not ending the stream yet. We're just going to kind of switch gears. I don't know why I said that. Switch gears. All right, here we go. So let's see what the CFS data for this year is looking like. So this is February, still looking very strong El Nino-ish, but we are expecting the Gulf and the Caribbean to also warm up. There's March starting to cool off, April really cooling off, May, June, start of the hurricane season, July, August, September, possible weak La Nina, definitely a cool neutral. Definitely a cool neutral, possible weak La Nina, moderate El Nina, dang it. La Nina slowly phasing in. This right here is very interesting. A rapid cooling, it looks like, between March and May. Rapid cooling of all of our Enzo regions. And then there you go. That definitely looks concerning. Let's zoom into the Atlantic real quick. That's not good. That's August. And the CFS is thinking that we could possibly be 2 degrees warmer in the Caribbean and definitely 1.5 degrees warmer in the Gulf of Mexico, regions that were unscathed, regions that were not touched by the 2023 hurricane season. And that's kind of the big thing. That's why I want to put so much energy as we get further into 2024 on this upcoming hurricane season. It's not for hype. You know dang well by now, guys, that we avoid hype at all costs unless it's necessary. And all I'm saying is in 2023, we had El Nino as a safeguard and our waters were extremely hot. And El Nino shut it down. We saw a glimpse of what it could possibly do with how hyperactive the Atlantic was. But obviously, you know, we had everything flying out into the Atlantic, so everybody in the U.S., for the most part, didn't give a crap. And that's the problem, is we're going to try to communicate that these waters could possibly support stronger and faster growing systems, and we're going to have source regions that can produce them this hurricane season, and maybe even in 2025 with different steering mechanisms. You know, we're going to start seeing storms that possibly form up right here and move like this, and storms that pop up in the Gulf and move straight in. And it's not like they're going to have an opportunity to really weaken or break down because of all this El Nino shear shooting out of the eastern Pacific across Central America. We had Arlene die, we had Brett die, we had Cindy die, all because of El Nino shear. You know, and even thereafter, we had all those systems towards the very end of the hurricane season. We had Vince 5 different times. Obviously, I'm joking, guys. But we had Vince forming up 5 different times, and it just kept getting squashed because the Caribbean was closed. There was no way the shear and the dry air that was plummeting through was going to let that happen. Now, imagine all... Now, see, hear me out. Hear me out. Let's rewind. Let's reverse the scenario real quick. Let's go full hypothetical here. We had 5 different instances of a potential Vince in the Caribbean and just to the north of the Caribbean. If you flip the script, and this already is very concerning for those of you watching, if you flip the script and turn El Nino off and you put those same 5 different disturbances, that could have been a boom, that could have been another boom, that could have been a boom, that could have been a boom, and that could have been a boom. See what I did there? Not lies. Not hype. That's the fact. That's definitely the facts. That is 100%, and I will argue that until I die. Whoever wants to disagree would say, you're hyping. That's the fact. We had 5 different disturbances roll through there. And if you guys remember, when the models were going crazy and thinking strong system, a lot of them curved back up like they typically do. The reason they didn't do anything is because El Nino shut it down. Shut it down instantly. Too much wind shear. I'll change the color so you get an idea. Too much wind shear across like this. That's why every single system that tried to set foot in the Caribbean and move into the Gulf died immediately. We had fronts coming down that were going to drive it up towards the northeast, but El Nino, again, the big elephant in the room, sheared them out. Did not let them win at all. If you flip it and you go back in time, whoops, that's how excited I'm getting. If you go back in time and you repeat the exact same scenario, but you simply change one piece of the puzzle and flip it from an El Nino to a La Nina or even a neutral, you remove the wind shear from the equation, that would have been not going to say that, but that would have been really bad. That would have been madness. That would have been madness. Because that would have been easily supplementary list right there. We would have had Vince, we would have had Whitney, and then the first 3 names of our supplementary list. And that is a guarantee. So again, it goes without saying before we end the stream, it's definitely worth watching what happens this hurricane season because we're going to have very, very nice, good old green checks over the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico because El Nino will be a non-factor. So we will have much more favorable conditions closer to the Caribbean, closer to Central America, closer to home in the United States. And that's it. So we'll definitely see what happens. Now, see, don't say that Nomad Cat 4. I'm not disagreeing with you, but don't say that. Because, wait, never mind. Are you guys talking about like a repeat of no warning and whatnot? Because that makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. I thought you meant it's not possible to repeat that kind of intensification. Because if you guys remember, we saw Lee rapidly intensified like that. And the only reason that we didn't get realize the full potential of Lee is because it was once again hitting the shear as it got closer. It was getting picked up by a trough, which naturally induces even more wind shear and dry air, and we didn't really get to see exactly what Lee could do because he wasn't left to his own devices. It blew up in 12 hours, very weak Category 1, all the way to a solid Cat 5 with 165-mile-an-hour winds overnight, so we saw a brief glimpse of it. So that's the kind of scenario that I'm kind of worried about for this hurricane season, especially since I'm watching so closely and since I'm watching out for a lot more folks. And right now, I'm not even thinking about the United States. I'm thinking way more about the Caribbean first and foremost. We'll see what happens for the United States without an El Nino. But what I'm more concerned about are all these rapid intensifiers that could be working their way through the Lesser Antilles who, in reality, dodged quite a bit of bullets. If we didn't have the wind shear and we didn't have the dry, dusty air, we could have saw Brett and Cindy do some real damage. We could have saw Franklin do some serious damage to Dominican Republic and Haiti. We could have seen Hurricane Tammy possibly wreak some more havoc, as well as Tropical Storm Philippe do some damage out there in the Northern Antilles. So that's who I'm thinking about way, way more. Definitely think about that way more. Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Cuba, most of Central America, despite the rainmakers they saw, were also out of the hurricane season unscathed. And those are my folks I'm thinking of first. Caribbean. A lot of the Caribbean islands do not need a major impact, and they will see it first before we do. Unless, God forbid, we see something blow up in the Gulf of Mexico. Then it's no holds barred. We got to batten down the hatches real fast, because they'll be knocking on our door within 24, 48 hours. Never have I seen a Gulf of Mexico system take more than 2 to 3 days maximum to make its way inland. They'll explode quickly. There was warning for Otis, but rapid intensification was a crapshoot forecast. It was possible. It was too late because it was less than 1 day to prepare. People need 2 whole days to prepare, and then some, depending on who you are, where you are, and the money and the financial resources and just what you have in your local area without having to travel too far, which is why I'm all aboard the preparation train as we get into the first quarter fully of 2024, making some videos on genuine preparedness and steps you should probably take if your local area faces severe weather, let alone a hurricane. See, April, people think it's outlandish, but I'm still standing firm in my Arlene theory. Arlene came out of nowhere in the very beginning of June and became a tropical storm, but again, we already had El Nino building in, so the Gulf of Mexico was blown away by the wind shear. Arlene could have became something if we didn't have that wind shear already out there. So, we'll see. It definitely could, Johnny, that's for sure. Low-end Category 1 hurricane in terms of central pressure. Yeah, we could definitely see winds approaching hurricane strength. We'll definitely have to see. Lord willing, they are slow. Lord willing, they'll definitely be slow. Because I don't know, I definitely think we could have had a very, very active first fraction of the hurricane season if we didn't have El Nino out there. Yeah, Nomad Cat 4, devil's advocate. Because remember, this last hurricane season, because of the hot waters, we had 4 named storms within the first 30 to 60 days of that hurricane season. Then we had a little bit of a lull in July. We had some invest areas that once again washed out because of the shear and the dry air. So, I agree. Supercharged, yeah, Bahamas, they're all included. All of our islands out there, every single island before the United States are included. That's for certain. Because the Bahamas completely came out unscathed. Again, we had some rainmakers that were hyped up, of course, but in terms of named systems, we didn't have anything. A lot of areas did not have anything. Yeah. The lull happened in July. Yeah, June was very active. We got through first 4 storms and a hurricane in June. July calmed down. July, we saw a really good influx of shear and especially the dry air. And then August, things got lit up. I remember it was right around hurricane. Once we started getting into the very tail end of July, and especially once we turned on the switch of August, that's when that chart on NHC's page was just fully packed out with nothing but storms left and right in invest areas. Oh, excuse me. Oh, man, I wish my video wasn't flopping. We are 2 subscribers away from 6,000 subs. I didn't think we were going to do it during the winter time, and it's a bummer that we're squeaking in because my latest video is not doing very well. So if you're in this chat and not subscribed to my channel, I genuinely am going to plug it in shamelessly and say you got to hit that subscribe button. We definitely got to, I want to get us to 6K. Spread the word, share the channel, have just a friend or a random buddy, subscribe to the page. And I'm not joking either. If you look, we are right there on the threshold. Let me see if I can get it to focus in. Right there, 5,998 subscribers. We've been in a lull and a slow season for the YouTube channel. I've been working on TikTok primarily, but it's nice to see that we're right there on the cusp of getting to 6K on the YouTube. That's very, very humbly enlightening for sure. PM, I'm going to send you a message right now, as a matter of fact. Like, yeah, I just saw your message. And if I can type, shoot. There we go. Johnny, happy early birthday. What day? Is it in February? My birthday is in about 28 days. Get it? 28 days later. 28 days later, I'll be 30. The big 3-0. But all right, guys, that's it. We're going to go ahead and close out the stream. It is going to be 9 p.m. Thank you very, very much for joining. And again, if you guys could do me a solid favor, please share this live stream, share the channel. Let's get over the 6,000 subscribers. Let's do it. Let's get over the hump. We're right there. It's been a struggle for the last month now. Oh, there it is. There it is. We did it. Look at that. Very, very wonderful moment. 6,002 subscribers. Outstanding. I love you guys. Thank you very much for that. That is awesome. I love it. That makes me feel so good. And not because of the count, but just because we have so many folks joining our community. It's such a wonderful feeling. Hopefully we can get even more people in on these live streams, and we can start having even greater conversations as we get ready for some of the bigger weather events for 2024. Because I do think this year is going to be a doozy, is what my gut's telling me. So a huge, huge, huge thank you to you guys for hitting that subscribe button. Gosh, I'm over the moon right now. I really am. Very excited. 6,000 subs. Thank you so much, guys. And it means the absolute world to me. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been seeing some people copying the energy, copying the charisma. But when I say thank you, guys, I really, I wish there was a better way to express it. And I can't wait till this channel can grow a little bit further so I can really start giving back to you guys and coordinating even bigger things to give back to you for, tuning in and kicking with me, especially when I go on my long-winded rants, blasting hot air into my microphone, going way too sciencey and way too nerdy for you guys to follow along. Dang, that's such a good feeling, especially since we were in a drought in terms of our YouTube channel for quite some time since hurricane season ended. Now, Lord willing, people won't start unsubscribing because I'm getting so excited. That would stink. But, that would definitely help tremendously, PM. Thank you very much. And yes, I definitely look forward to messaging and actually chatting a little bit more, too. That'll be nice. Nick, thank you very much. Much love back to you as well. Now let's get to 7K by March 1st. Yep, Kevin, I agree. We got a lot of work to do, a lot of ground to cover. If this weather pattern can stay busy and I can actually put my videos out, I guess, with the right kind of style to attract the attention, because mine is, I still don't know what's going on. My latest video just kind of fell off the planet. Everyone else's video is doing phenomenal, but mine is just really bombing right now, and the views are dropping. So I don't know. Maybe YouTube got upset at me. But, all right. We'll go ahead and we're going to start wrapping up. If you build it, yep, Mick and Marley, always with the infamous catchphrase or the famous catchphrase. But, alrighty, guys, we'll go ahead and close out the stream. Thank you tremendously for your continued support. Kind of stressing out because we've been talking about storm chasing, and my car is down and out. I got to change the starter on it. I'm hopefully going to have that done tomorrow, and Lord willing, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, she'll turn over, because she's hard parked right now, hard stuck. I thought it was the ignition switch. That didn't do anything when I replaced it. The battery's good. Cleaned any corrosion off the terminals. That didn't do it. So tomorrow morning, I have a spare starter in the house, and I'm going to jack up the car and hopefully have that done before I have to clock into work. So fingers crossed. Maybe I'll even update you guys on the status of the Mobile, and we'll see what happens. That's going to dictate if we go storm chasing this weekend and next week. So TBD. But again, I definitely will stay nerdy and sciencey for certain. I'm definitely going to stay true to you guys. I'm definitely going to provide as best of content as I reasonably can, and the most responsible of content as well, not just for views and the subscribers and all that jazz. This is not a channel for entertainment. Will I pepper them and pepper you guys with some entertaining tidbits? Guaranteed, of course, but this is not an entertainment channel. This is not for the hype. This is not, just because. This is true, genuine knowledge as I'm doing my best to give to you guys as I continue to learn as well. And it's kind of like a quid pro quo. Communicating and talking to you guys only continues to refine my skills and just allow me to become a better content creator for the weather niche. So again, thank you so much for the 6,000 subscribers. It means a lot. And I know that's small in comparison to some other channels, but shoot, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to get 1,000 subscribers from you guys. So this is just, it's an overjoyous moment, and hopefully we just continue to grow, and this is a very prosperous 2024 for all you guys, all of us, everybody. We're doing this together. We're in this together. Get yourself a Halo bolt. It'll replace jumper cables. A Halo bolt. I'll have to look at that. Multiple trades and tools. Oh, yeah, I do a lot of the work on all of my cars. The only thing I don't like doing, ironically, even though this is technically electrical, is electrical. I don't like doing wiring. I'm not very good at wiring. Body work, paint work, detailing, installing bolt-on parts, turbos, interior work, I can do that, but not necessarily anything that involves wiring. I haven't practiced too much with that yet. So fingers crossed again, we can get the Weather Center Mobile back up and running. And all will be better for all your work. Bravo, Naz, Mick, and Marley. Thank you kindly for the kind words. Alrighty, guys, before I ramble on too much, this is what I mean, sticking through all my hot-winded spiels and my speeches and whatnot. We'll go ahead and close out the live stream. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your Tuesday night to join me. Happy 2024 once again, everybody watching, and those of you tuning in thereafter. We'll be back very soon on the channel to give you guys some updates. Might not do a full Weather Center segment tomorrow. We'll probably wait and see exactly what starts to pan out in our model data. It's only Wednesday. We still have a few days to get ahead of both of our possible severe weather scenarios, not only for the southeast, but for the Great Lakes and Northeast. We'll continue to monitor, and I'll update you guys. Please follow my TikTok and my Instagram if you haven't done so already. Please like and share this page, like and share the video, all the content that you guys see. If you could be so kind, it would mean so much to me. And again, thank you graciously from the bottom of my heart for helping get us to 6,000 subscribers. This community is going to continue to grow, and I can promise you guys I'm going to work myself to death if I have to make this the best weather community that we possibly can on all of YouTube and all of social media. We are going to get there, and we are all going to get there together, all right? If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comments section below. Drop me a line on X, Instagram, or TikTok of your choice, whichever you prefer, or none at all, and we'll just see you next time. But until then, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.